presentation from open source testing beyond service constraints. My name is Kristina, as you already know, and some of you have specifically came to this presentation to see. Unfortunately, for me, there are a lot of people, but yeah, I can see a lot of people, which is nice. So the nervousness is going to come down. I just wanted to say that I hope that this presentation will be beneficial for everyone that is attending. It is beneficial for quality assurance engineers as well as developers. And I also wanted to mention that I have some pretty easy and neat examples that are beginner friendly, so just bear with me and let's begin. I'm going to go over the agenda, so I'm going to describe the medical platform that we've been working on. Then we're going to talk about the development and testing challenges. Then we're going to quickly talk about mocking subbing. And of course, we're going to continue with the 3 tools, one of which is Tweak browser extension, the Camouflage node library, the Cypress interception method that is integrated within the Cypress testing framework. We'll do a brief comparison of the 3 tools, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions and answers. So what you can see depicted here is the platform that we've been working on. So I'm going to point to this specific part, which is the medical device information platform, which is the part that my team has been tasked on working on. Actually, it's a specific module that we've been working on within this medical device information platform. So what does this do? It collects information from medical devices, from patients in critical care or patients in non-critical care. So these devices can range from ventilators, respirators, temperature sensors, pulse oximeters, invasive or non-invasive blood pressure measurement devices, and various different. The information is sometimes collected directly by these medical devices, and sometimes it is transferred via gateway devices because some of these devices don't have the intelligence to communicate via standardized protocols. So once this information is gathered, then sometimes it requires additional data processing. And this is the task for the module that we've been developing. And after the data is additionally processed, for example, I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say that a temperature sensor is actually measuring in a unit that is Celsius, but someone wants to translate it into Fahrenheit. So this module will do this for you, and then it will send it on for different applications. Some of these applications are for the caregivers, so they see on their workstations, or they receive mobile alerts from the patients. It can also be used for reporting and analytics, or it can be sent out to third-party clinical systems, and of course it can be stored in the electronic medical record for the patient. So that is a very brief explanation of how the platform works. And now let's dive into the challenges that we, in particular, the team, have been faced with. So I've divided them into 2 groups. One is the technical challenges, and the other one is the project management challenges. So I'll begin with the technical challenges. So one, I would assume that you might see as obvious, that we had no access to real medical devices, nor any of the gateway devices through which those that don't communicate by standardized protocols send their information. And of course, we have limited ability to test the system with real-world inputs. The second is non-existing or limited upstream services. Unfortunately, these services are upstream and are dependencies. We depend on them. And this presents a difficulty in integrating or developing a solution. So you can see why this would present a challenge. The project management challenges are the following. For these, unfortunately, I'm just going to mention them, but we just found some workarounds in how to solve them. So we didn't have any finalized contracts for the services entrusted to us for development. So there was uncertainty in scope and risk of scope creep and changes. Also, no finalized contracts for the upstream services. So, as I said previously, we deployed workarounds for this situation where we actually define them ourselves. So, bar these specific challenges that we faced, there's some other challenges that I think are notable to mention. So, challenges without mocking. So, dependency on third-party services being up and running. You can't always depend on this. I mean, even for us, where we have dependencies within the same company, even within the same project, but even if they're third-party services, it's pretty unreliable to depend on them for your development and testing. Also, you may have inconsistent test environments. There may be a network latency, API downtime, etc. And of course, the one very, very known issue for QA is difficulty in replicating edge cases or rare events. So, having mentioned all these challenges, and specifically the technical challenges and the other challenges which are of technical nature, let's speak about mocking and stubbing. So this is one of the definitions of mocking. So mocking is the simulation of external dependencies, allowing one to test the system in isolation. So yeah, I'm going to be using the term mocking, but sometimes I will actually mean stubbing, so I would like to use them interchangeably, but I will mostly be using the term mocking. So what is the difference, you would ask, mocking and stubbing? There is a technical difference, but usually they are used interchangeably. So stubbing usually provides canned responses, hard-coded responses, and is usually just focused on output. Unlike mocking usually focuses on behavior. So for example, if you are mocking, let's say, a function, you might be interested in how many times this function has been called, or what arguments have been passed to this function. Whereas if you're stubbing, you just want to see the outputs, the specific outputs. Why this is important? So it's important because it enables us to test under conditions where dependencies are unpredictable, unavailable, or slow. So it's pretty neat to have these mocking tools. So yeah, let's dive into it. So the first, forgot, and of course it enhances the confidence in code stability. So that's an important part. So yeah, let's begin with the tweak browser extension. So this is a browser extension. It's a very lightweight tool, and lets you intercept requests and modify API responses within the browser, within the extension. So there is no need to change any backend configurations, which is pretty neat. Regarding the benefits, the advantages, it's very easy to use. There's no additional setup outside of the browser once you add the extension in the browser, and I think it works for most popular browsers like Chrome, Edge, Mozilla, Opera. I think it works for all of them. It makes quick modifications. It enables you to do quick modifications of network requests and responses, and it allows testing of UI under various data conditions. And of course, it provides real-time feedback, so once these requests are intercepted, they're instantly mocked. The responses are instantly resent, unless, I mean, you can add a delay if you want to test something out with a certain delay. Of course, Tweak has its limitations, so it's generally limited for front-end and manual testing. It is not very suitable for complex backend mocking. The free version allows for the setup of 12 rules. Of course, there is a workaround for this. For example, you can write up 12 rules, then export the configuration, then write up another set of 12, and then you'd have to switch between these configurations, but that is pretty tedious for large-scale testing. Of course, the paid version allows you to enter more than 12 rules, of course. And unfortunately, it is not functional in incognito mode, so that is another drawback. So let me quickly show you how this Tweak browser extension works. Okay, so let me jump. This is not it. So I don't know if you can, but the code is not important here. So this is a testing site provided by Cypress. I will be using this site for my example for Tweak and for Cypress as well. So yeah, as we can see, this is a really basic testing site. So we can push this button, it gets the comment, it posts it here, we post the comment, it just says post successful. And if we click the updates comment, it just doesn't do anything. And I found out actually that if there's an error when the update comment is clicked this button, then it's gonna post a message just below the button. So let's say that we're developing this page and we want to test that in the case of an error, the message appears below the update comment button. So I have Tweak installed here, but let me just show you how we would go about this. So how I would go about this, maybe there's another way, of course. So we would click the button, we would inspect the network request, so we can see that this post request has happened. So we can see that it's actually a put request. We can see the request URL, and of course we can see the payload, we can see the response. The response looks like this. But you would have to have some knowledge. I found out in the Cypress code how the message would be structured in the case of an error. So yeah, here it is, the URL. So it can be a partial mesh. You can even use regex here. You can click the button and then convert it to regex. You put the HTTP method here, the desired status code. You can put a delay, as I mentioned earlier. Of course, you can label it the way you want to label it. And this is a response payload that we want to mock. So we just want to mock an object with an error property that's saying showcasing Tweak. So we're gonna run it now. Let me just try it out now if it's gonna work. So as you can see, it did show the message here. So this is a very simple example on how you could test something that is not easily reproducible. It's a pretty limited example, of course. So that was about Tweak. Let me now get into Camouflage. So an overview is it is a powerful HTTP server mocking tool based on Node.js, and it is used to mock APIs for service testing. I mean, it could be used, we use it, and it would be beneficial to use it. It allows for complex API simulations, and it's a file-based mocking system that supports HTTP, HTTPS, HTTP2, gRPC, Thrift, and WebSockets. We've only needed to mock HTTP and gRPC, but yeah, I guess that the support is there. So Camouflage advantages. So it works independently of the front end. It can be integrated into the CI/CD pipeline, which is very beneficial. It's capable of handling complex API scenarios, authentication headers, or custom routes. And it's flexible and supports various configurations like REST and GraphQL. And of course, it is suitable for end-to-end API testing. Of course, it has its drawbacks, like every other tool. And so it requires Node.js environments and setup, so it is not as straightforward as browser-based tools. It has a steeper learning curve, unfortunately, especially if you're using these custom handlebars, which I will show you. And unfortunately, it's not that well maintained. It has a small-scale community support, so yeah, maybe you would lose some time in finding answers to questions. It is not ideal for front-end developers, testers looking for a simple UI-driven tool. So, as we mentioned previously, the Tweak would be a better solution if you're looking to quickly mock something for manual testing. And yeah, let me also quickly show you how this works. So I'm going to show the codes. So this is, I don't know if I should zoom in or you can see. Okay, so we can see these get.mock files. This is for HTTP and HTTPS mocking. For example, I have this movies code. Let me show you what I've done here. So it's a very simple mock with logic. So it's actually comparing the query keys, and it's returning responses based on that key. So also we have a check if it's missing. It's using this, as I mentioned previously, is compared handlebar, but this is a custom handlebar, so it's not integrated. Let me find them. So you define it here, which is also very neat because you can write them yourself, so you can customize them to your specific needs. So these are the ones that came with the Camouflage, and this is the one that I've entered. So again, back to the actual mock file. If you need me to explain it more, we can maybe discuss after the session, but let me showcase what it's going to return. Now, this is Cypress again. So for example, if, do I need to zoom in, or can you see it well? It's okay? Okay, so if I call this movies endpoints without any search queries, it says no search query provided, and this is something that I've entered in my mock file. So for example, let me search by title equals gladiator. You can see how old I am. Yeah, so it's gonna return this movie, pretty print. Then I'm gonna enter AI, for example. It's gonna return the movie. Then let's say The Great Gatsby, which is gonna return 2 movies. And then something that's gibberish and that shouldn't produce a response with a movie. It says no movies found by search queries. So you can see that I've tested out various queries. I've tested out with a non-existing query, and just the possibilities are endless. That is a brief showcasing of Camouflage. Of course, you can mock gRPCs, HTTPS, so it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. So back to the presentation, let's dive into Cypress. So I think you're very well acquainted with Cypress, some of you, I mean, the ones that work as quality assurance engineers. So it's an end-to-end testing framework with built-in network interception and mocking capabilities. And it can simulate both API failures and success responses during front-end and back-end testing. So we use Cypress for both back-end testing. Let's talk about the advantages of Cypress interception. So it's integrated into Cypress. You don't need to do any additional setup once you've installed Cypress. It can handle both front-end and back-end testing. It allows interception of network requests and real-time notification of responses. And it's ideal for testing previous API responses without waiting for back-end changes. Of course, there are limitations, as with any tool. It's pretty heavy for purely front-end testing. It's better suited for integrated end-to-end testing. It may require test engineers to understand Cypress deeply, so there is also a learning curve. And it can slow down tests if too many of these network requests are intercepted and modified. But all in all, it's a pretty neat tool for test automation. And of course, if you have issues with backend and if you have edge cases that you cannot easily replicate, it's the best it can. So yeah, let me quickly show you the same example we saw with Tweak. So this is the Cypress test runner. Let me refresh it. Okay, let me reopen it. Okay, of course. Let me go to function here. Okay. We'll test in Chrome. So it's basically going to do the same thing that the tweak extension did, but with a different response. So it's going to automatically visit the site. It's going to click some buttons. And as you can see, it has returned, well, this comment does not exist when this update comment button was clicked. So let's see the code here. So we don't need this one. Actually, network requests, here it is. So I'm just gonna show you the part where it's stopping the response. So as you can see, you have this CY intercept method. You're saying that we wanna intercept put methods with this URL. So of course, it matches everything before comments, a path with multiple stages and something after, which is our request, and it returns a status code of 404 and a body with an error message. Let's see the error message. It says, well, this comment does not exist. And yeah, there's a delay in this particular example of 500 milliseconds. So it functions the same way as we did with tweak, but it can be used for your automated tests, and it's pretty neat. So let me get back to the presentation. So let's do a quick comparison of the three tools. So advantages for Tweak are that it's very simple, it's browser-based, and it provides real-time feedback. The limitations are unfortunately that it's front-end only, limited ability for conditional responses. Camouflage is a complex API mocking tool with CI/CD integration. It's pretty flexible, but it requires setup. It's backend oriented and it has a steeper learning curve, and as we said, it's not very well maintained. And Cypress interception, the advantages are that it can test. It is a full stack testing tool, it integrates well, it is integrated into Cypress. And limitations are that it can become an overhead for manual front-end testing, and of course it requires Cypress expertise. So choosing the right tool, of course, you don't have to choose just one. You can use multiple. You can use some that are not mentioned in this presentation. You can do your own investigation. But the key considerations, so if you want something very quick for manual front-end testing and simple API mocks, then you could default to Tweak. If you want complex backend testing to do complex backend testing, and you need to mock them extensively, the APIs, then Camouflage is your best bet. And Cypress interception is perfect for automated tests for full stack and end-to-end testing, where both front-end and backend integration is required. And yeah, as mentioned previously, focus on automation and integration. So final thoughts, key takeaways. So these mocking tools, all of them provide flexibility and efficiency in testing environments. Choosing a tool, it's going to be based on your specific needs, your testing scope. So if it's front-end, back-end, both, if it's manual, automated testing. And testing beyond service constraints, as the title suggests, is critical for delivering robust and reliable applications. This is a slide that contains the resources when you can read up more on all of these tools that I have mentioned. And thank you very much for attending this presentation. I hope it was beneficial. If you have any questions, you can ask them now. I think, do we have time for some questions? And also, you can scan this or send me an email on this email address, and I'll be happy to reply to them if I can't do so now.
Do we have any questions? Yeah.
Hey.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, question maybe. Let's go back to the initial part of your presentation where you mentioned that you're working with external systems that you don't have availability as a device to test.
Yeah.
So, given all these tools, which are obviously very useful, I was wondering, what is your experience in actually getting the specification for those real material devices in terms of their API functionality in order to properly mock them up? How successful is that step, that initial step? Because once you have them mocked up, you can test whatever.
Yes, yes, of
However,
course.
the challenge, I would like to hear what is the experience of finding the actual proper spec.
Yes, that is one of the project management challenges that I mentioned. So we were able to find some information. It's not from the actual manufacturers, but because our specific application has a backend for front-end service, so we are relying on the service upstream, which is also developed by the same company. So although this service was not standardized, we did agree that we are going to create the model, and we're going to, I mean, we did get some data, for example, for the devices and the drivers for those devices. So like name and ID, that is the extension that we were able to get to. And of course, the data that they're sending, we also were able to get from the company. It was provided to us, but it was not an exhaustive list. So we did have some data, and the rest of the data we're also mocking so that, for example, in the UI it is displayed correctly. For example, we put some random stuff with long names, but we have some data that is provided to us. And as I said, it was not from the manufacturers, but it was within the same company by the people that are to develop those upstream services that I was talking about.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Show of hands.
I can't see hands.
In that case, one more big round of applause for Kristina.